so much for having me. And to anyone listening, hi. My name is Tamara Ghazi. I live in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, born here. My parents are mixed Arab, so I grew up here most of my life. Then I immigrated to Canada. I lived also in the south of Spain and San Francisco. So a lot of us in this part of the world, or I think a lot of us nowadays, we are like that nomads. So we're kind of from a little. I've been back in Dubai 10 years now. I started up my own practice, which is a multidisciplinary. So we have clinics in Dubai, one on the way in Abu Dhabi, and one in Kuwait. My job is a part of my life because I advocate health and well-being. I'm really, really passionate about long distance running, all kinds of sports. I wake surf, I kite surf, anything to get me moving. Now I'm taking paddle lessons because it's the newest hype over here, and I don't want to feel left
Cool.
out. So now that we're in off season from running, way too hot outside. I just walked to the grocery store and I'm sweating. So I'm in a great place in my life. I'm really grateful to be where I am. We're always constantly changing and evolving and learning new things, even in the field of preventative medicine, anti-aging, and regenerative medicine. Things change every day. But my passion is making people more passionate about their well-being, understanding their body more, how they function, why they're in pain, how to get out of pain holistically. There's so many reasons why someone's in pain. It's not only physical, there's a big emotional aspect, there's a lifestyle aspect. There's so many different aspects to pain. So I'm a big advocate on teaching people what really is pain and how to understand where their pain comes from and what they can do about it.
I love it. I love that you say you like teaching people as well. It's not just that you're, wanting to heal people from pain or give them a quick fix or whatever. I think simply by educating them on what pain is and how they can manage their own pain better, they have a better chance, obviously, to long term
I
solve
understand
their own problems.
when people call me doctor, I get a bit shy because I don't like this white coat. Like I'm the person that I'm your savior, and I'm not. I learn from my patients every day, and as a doctor, you're a teacher, you're also a student, because I learned so much from my patients. But I like to learn, I've learned so much from you in terms of nutrition, but when it comes to biomechanics, I've seen so much in the past 12 years to practice, and I can help educate somebody on how to heal. I never do the healing. They end up doing the healing. And in chiropractic,
Oh,
you
I love
remove
that.
any trauma on the body, or you help people feel better so that they can get out there and live their best life. That's exactly what I do in my job. I give people the power. There's nothing that we do that's magic, or we definitely help with interferences in the spine and the muscle, but then people get out there and perform to their best abilities and they heal themselves. So that's the most amazing thing about the body, is the regenerative powers of the body. And especially now with COVID, I mean, is on the rise again. I was so stressed out the last few weeks with media and what you hear, but you realize, like, we have the power, first of all, in the belief that our body has the ability to heal itself, and surrounding ourselves with good food, movement, sunshine, the basic things that are really the most important parts of holistic healthcare and well-being.
I love that so so much, and I'm curious because I mean you're the only chiropractor that I know, but are most people in your field that aware of how important that holistic approach is? Is that something that you, like, when you first started, that you always have believed in, or is that something that you had to learn over the course of time also?
I've had to learn. The profession has changed a lot in the last few years. I feel like our generation, we're so much more into, I mean, just it's normal. Look at all of us in all different fields. Also in our generation, we've been exposed so much more into health and well-being. And if I look at my parents' generation, or they listen, the doctor says, take this
Mm.
pill, and they take. Now we have
Hmm.
the internet. We have so much, we research, we look up a medicine. My patients come to me and they know what they want. They've been to Europe, they've been to the US, they've been to Asia, they did around the world, and they come to me, they're like, I want this, and I'm like, well, hold on. So I feel like we are so much more exposed. So we've learned to adapt and to change and to grow. So I feel like, definitely the profession has evolved over the last few years. Not even, there's a lot of people who practice my profession who aren't as healthy as they should be. But for me, if I want to be a role model to my patients and I want to be a role model to my community, I have to live my best life, and I have to make sure that people look up to me in terms of my health, my fitness, how I look, how I take care of myself, how I treat others. You know, that if we are in this position, we want to impose well-being on people, then we need to be role models in terms of that
I
healthcare.
love it.
And every I
Yes.
try to make change my life and to my lifestyle. The biggest thing for me is stress management. But every day I try to make changes in my lifestyle where I can live a better and a healthier and a more holistic life, because we're all human at the end of the day. And yesterday I was listening to an amazing podcast. It was Jay Shetty and Tony Robbins and a patient, and it was to live their life and their
Oh, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so sorry. That's, if
It's
anything,
okay.
it's most likely my connection.
I figured your ship is happy cruising around, so probably picking up a little bit of Wi-Fi here and there.
That's that's true, but I can hear you perfectly now. Yes. Um,
Amazing.
sorry. So the last thing that I picked up was that you listened to a great podcast. If you just want to touch on the
Yeah.
podcast again, that would be awesome.
Podcast that was shared to me yesterday. It was one of Jay Shetty's podcasts. He wrote that book, Think Like a Monk, but he has a really interesting
Mhm.
podcast that talks about different things in healthcare. And he was interviewing Tony Robbins, who I found incredible in real life. I went to his show. You have to listen to the podcast. I'll send you the link to it. And it was sent to me by a friend and a patient that I just ran the marathon with. And she was like, you need to listen to this. It's about stem cell therapy. And it gave her a lot of insight on stem cell therapy. But for me, it was so amazing to hear how Tony Robbins lives his life and his routine. You know, I didn't know he had a tumor that produces growth hormone. This is why he's a very large man, and how many calories he burns. And
Oh.
it was incredible. It was incredible. And how he chose to not go the surgical route, how he chose to go to alternative medicine, stem cell therapy. And he has an amazing routine. Every morning he wakes up, he does a cold bath and a hot bath. And I mean, what I was saying is there's so many different things out there, so many different avenues of well-being that one can take, and it's up to you as a person to decide what works for you. Because as a
Mhm.
practitioner, I can tell that try cold baths, they'll be great for you, work on your sleep, work on the, but it's up to you as a person to decide what works for your life, because we all live such different lives. We all have different stressors, different
Absolutely.
environments. There's no one way fix all. There's no, all roads lead to Rome in a way. All roads lead to healthcare, but you have to find what works for you. I can't tell you, oh, Lisa, I want you to do, yoga every single day, and I expect you to do an ice bath, and I expect you to do this, because you have so much time and you have, the stresses of your work and
Yes.
your travel. And so you need to find what works for you, what's realistic as an objective for you to fulfill, and how you can actually live your healthiest lifestyle to your ability.
I love that. I think that that is so important and so underrated. And I mean, you know that too, when it comes to nutrition, like a lot of people, they're like, oh, why don't you write me a meal plan or, whatever. And one of the first things that I always say, like, a meal plan, you're going to follow that for like a really short amount of time, if at all. It's not going to necessarily work for you. You need to be eating the foods that you enjoy, that fits
Uh-huh.
your social life, your travel, and all of that as well. So I love that you say
Yeah,
that. But that
I mean,
also makes me think, because you offer physiotherapy, chiropractic
yeah.
therapy, sports therapy, and all of that. So when someone comes to your clinic, do you just like, how do you determine what the best plan of treatment is for them necessarily?
People usually come in because they've heard of someone, or they've heard of me, or they've come into the clinic. So we really work together as a team. And that's what I love about my team. We're 27 different practitioners: chiro, physio, sports therapy, kinesiology, sports medicine. And hopefully one day I would love to have even a rheumatologist, neurology, orthopedics, everything related to the body, even psychology.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dream. But people, I feel, when they're coming to a musculoskeletal clinic, aren't always open to going to the psychological route, because it's body connection. We all know how important, living stress-free life is on your food, on your diet, on your well-being, and all of that. But for now, we have these amazing specialties that work together. And when a patient comes in, no matter who they see, the practitioners know, and there's something I drill into people, is it's about teamwork. It's giving a patient different approaches to healthcare. Talking before, when you give someone many different options, because I'm, for example, an aggressive practitioner. I like to do a lot of deep tissue. I do needles. I do, my patients always joke that I leave love bites, because they leave and they're all bruised up. And I like to grassland, and that's just, but it doesn't work for everyone. Not everybody likes that approach. Most of my patients know that, and they like that approach. People don't. It doesn't work for everyone. So when I assess a patient, generally, if it's just pain management, I usually see them. But I like somebody to go through different stages of care. So the chiropractic is more about well-being, pain management, giving the person confidence to get them out of pain if there's a locked joint or the muscles are inflamed, doing a lot of release work. And then once they're confident, they can work with a physio mainly on rehab or on gaining that confidence. So they skills, we're not trainers, we're not people who write programs in terms of this is the exercise. We're too busy doing proprioceptive work, stability work, mobility work, rehab. That's the kind of physiotherapy that we do. A patient from that acute pain to they're out of pain, now we can educate them on how to move properly, why they got the injury, and how to avoid it. So that's how we like to work holistically. We also have two amazing medical doctors, and we try to do minimally invasive procedures like plasma, peptide therapy, which I'm huge on. I love peptide therapy. I've tried it myself twice. It's something I do once a year, and it's insane with recovery and regeneration. I just find I don't recover well on my own. Peptides are a kind of protein that basically help regenerating at the mitochondrial level or at the cellular level. And I've done them twice, and my recovery was incredible. Like, I was doing insane workouts, and the next day waking up with like much better sleep. Like my REM sleep was better. I barely had any soreness. It was absolutely amazing. And it's not a hormone. It's just a protein. So it's amazing how much is coming out in terms of research. We've used peptides on people who have digestive issues, who have like chronic tendinitis, and to see the healing is absolutely amazing. So there's so many different ways of naturally helping your body regenerate, and so we are there to help people kind of find out what the right thing is for them. A lot of people come in, they're like, I read about PRP, I want to try this, and I'm like, well, why don't you try physio first, and then you can try plasma therapy? Because if you have a structural problem, no matter how much we put in there, if you're like this and you expect your tendon, the tendon, no matter how much plasma we put in there, you're structurally not moving properly. So if you're going to lift weights and your shoulder sits forward, you're going to have impingement. So let's fix the positioning of your shoulder, then do the plasma to heal the tissue. Then you feel great. Then you can go lift weights the way you want to do, or whatnot. So we try to look at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what preventative medicine is about. It's about fixing the root cause of the injury and making sure that you can continue to live your life and continue to perform to the best of your ability. And everybody in a way is an athlete, people come in, most injuries are movement or lack of movement injuries. So even though I'm at a sports clinic, and walking through my clinic is an athlete, actually 90% of the people walking through my door are sedentary. They sit in businesses, they're behind computers, they have neck pain, they have low back pain from stress, from life. They're not athletes. I wish they were, but our job is to inspire them to do something every day to move better. And I live in a country where people don't move much at all. It's very hot outside. It's not pedestrian friendly. We rely a lot on driving, not even public transportation as much. But that's how life is here. And we have so many different, Dubai, you've seen the gyms here. It's pretty incredible what we have. And it's in the last 3 years, it's exponentially grown. Every corner, you have an amazing fitness facility or a studio, so there's so many options for people to move. It's just getting people adapting to that, routine where they have to do something every day to help benefit their body.
And then, as you say, also the correct movement, because like, for example, the example that you brought with shoulder impingement, for instance, like so many people that I know that do train regularly, like through too much overhead movement or whatever, or the wrong kind of overhead movement, you easily get impingement syndrome. So totally, I think that that's such a great approach. And you mentioned something earlier also, which was you're not just your patients, but your own stress management, that is really always at the forefront of your mind, and that you want to optimize your own stress management. But you also mentioned like how much you love being active, like all the various things that you do. And so I find that super, super interesting. And I think a lot of people can benefit from hearing how you knowingly, like knowing all these things, balance those two things of like recovery, but at the same time moving enough, but not too much. And like, yes, how do you have a bit of a secret recipe there?
Yeah, I mean, in the last year, I think I've really, really tried to switch towards recovery. There's two things that hit me. Number one, with weight loss, I realized I'm always in like high stress, high performance, high cortisol environment. And I've worked with you. I mean, I'm not that strict with my macros, but I've learned so much in terms of how to eat properly. But I realized if I'm living a fast paced and a lot of communities, and a community like the one I live in, it's about performance. It's about you come here, you work
Mm-hmm.
hard, people applaud you for being burnt out. It's this work so hard, work 24/7. Even people working from home nowadays, they don't get a break because they're not in the office from 9 to 5. They're working 24/7. At least I can say I go and I
Yes.
see my patients and I'm done. But we've become such a work driven culture. And so people are living in sympathetic fight or flight all the time, and their adrenaline is high. People can't sleep properly because they get home, they're wired, they're watching TV, the TV's all crazy. And so they're constantly in high stress, high adrenaline, high cortisol. And then, you want to get up, you're feeling constantly tired. There's this adrenal fatigue, which I don't think is
Mm-hmm.
really adrenal fatigue, just too much adrenaline, and you're just overstimulated all the time. So you go through
Yes.
so many burns. And I've been experiencing this for so many years. And I got to a place where I just got so tired of it. I got tired of having repetitive injuries. I got tired of being cranky. I'm not a cranky person. I am high energy all the time. But there are some days I used to wake up training for my marathon and I was so cranky, and I'm like, that's it. Like, I need to start cutting down. So I'm an overperformer. There were days like today where I had planned a sprint session and then a paddle lesson and then going to work all from 10 to 7 p.m. And I decided, you know what? No, I'm going to cut it down and make smarter choices in terms of my training. I also stopped doing
Mm-hmm.
extreme high intensity. I PB'd my marathon. I never thought I could run as fast as I did, and I finished and feeling amazing. And it was such a good feeling, like no, not broken, not sad. The training, I enjoyed every moment of it, and it's because I made the choices to do my 4 sessions a week. I hired a coach because before I used to just run. Now she used to make me actually optimize my runs. The days I wanted to do something, that no, don't go and do CrossFit. Like, you're already doing high intensity. You either do slow controlled strength training or you do yoga. That's it. Stop overloading. And I realized I was so much better. I wasn't breaking out as much. I was able to control my weight. I wasn't having the sugar binges that I always have. And all of that was by managing stress. And you fight it so much in the beginning because your body it needs that. Like, it's like I need my heroin. It's the same. I need that feeling I get from doing intensity. I love high intensity. I need to sweat. Like, I always used to tell people I'll sleep when I die. And my dad always used to tell me, like, you're gonna die really soon if you continue to live this lifestyle. Like, this is not a health. We need to rest. We're human. We're not machines. You're gonna keep breaking down. And this
Mhm.
is the first year, I have no injuries. My injuries are minimal. I have a little bit of stiffness here. That's it. It's easy things that you can work on. And it's always like less is more. And I never really
Yes.
understood that, but it's optimizing how you think, how you sleep, how you move. Optimization is everything. And there's so much information out there nowadays on that. And I feel like in the last 2 years, healthcare has also really shifted to recovery. But I always tell my
Yes.
patients, I mean, you can bath, you can cryo, you can do whatever you want. But if you don't sleep well, if you don't eat well, if you don't rest enough, you will never recover properly. You can go do a million. You can use that Theragun every day. You can get 1,000 therapy sessions. But if you're managing your stress, if you're not getting, I get the patient, I only need 4 hours of sleep a night. You do not need 4 hours of sleep a night. You need at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Women need a bit more sleep because of their hormones, especially around your cycle. So that's a whole nother conversation. But 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep is not normal. You will crash eventually. You're living on high adrenaline, coffee all
Yes.
day. It's so bad for you. And then I see people coming in with the same injuries again and again and again. Their bodies are so stiff, their fascia feels terrible, their muscles are in spasm. It's because they're not recovering. So you
Yes.
have it on both overperformers, and then you have the ones that are just, you know, not doing anything and they feel sluggish and they come to you and they say, oh, it's my thyroid. And I'm like, it's not your thyroid. You're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're not moving. Of course, we're one system, everything works together. It's like a domino effect. So when one thing is out of place, everything goes. So definitely in the last year I've learned to say no more. I socialize
Mhm.
a lot. So my friends are always like, do you want to play a paddle game before yoga? Do you want to go for a run? I'm like, no, I choose one thing that's performance, and the next thing for a walk, I can do something that's recovery. And we can enjoy
Mhm.
it, and we don't have to die every session. That's something you taught me before. Before I used to say, oh, it's a waste of a workout, of an outfit. Sorry, it's a waste of an outfit. If I'm not dying in the session and I'm not sweating, but that would just leave me burnt out all the time. So it was unnecessary. I definitely feel better than I've ever felt. Recovery is everything at every stage in your life. If you want to grow, if you want to develop, look at babies. They need 12 hours of sleep and a nap because they're growing. So if you want to regenerate, I don't recommend 12 hours sleep. But if you want to recover and you want to regenerate, you definitely need to rest. You definitely need to know when to slow down, when your body is telling you this is too much. We go through phases in our life where life is stressful, or we go through something, and instead of turning, and letting that energy, I mean, working out is great to manage stress, but learning how to modify your training and your environment to fit your stress. So I know when I'm going through a really stressful period and I'm not sleeping, I move every day, but it's low intensity, it's slow, it's controlled. I feel great. I don't leave the session destroyed, and I can continue my day
Mhm.
doing the best of my ability, and my mood is balanced. And so
Yeah.
many people now really imbalance hormones, and that leads to so many other diseases and problems, and it's so much harder to treat than to actually prevent. So that's why, yeah,
Yes.
recovery is really so important. But I still do all the sports I love. I pick and choose. When the weather's great, I really focus on running. Now it's super hot outside, so I've taken up paddle. I'm training a lot more in the gym. I love socializing over that. I'll go to a fitness class once or twice a week. I'm really into yoga right now. So it's so fun to try different things and find what works for you, and to learn and to grow. And we're always learning and we're always growing, and we should always evolve. As humans, we should always evolve. When we stop, we're no longer surviving. So that's something I
Yes.
find, like, just take, and and it's amazing the trends out there. I mean, every few years there's a new health trend, there's a new diet trend. Now keto isn't in so
Mhm.
much anymore. Now it's whatever. There's so many different things that, you hear the trends all the time. I think just learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Even being vegan isn't as much of a trend, I find, now here. And now in Dubai, it's all about being carnivore, and the high protein.
Mhm.
We know what works, and science is there to show what works and what doesn't work. But if we want something to be sustainable, it's stop following the trends and start finding what works for you, tapping into that inner knowledge that you have, because as people, we know what works for us. And we're also different. There's no one size fits all.
Absolutely. No, I love everything that you said, and I think you mentioned so many great points. For example, one of the things that you said, with like high intensity stuff, or almost being like an adrenaline junkie. So what I always used to think is like, how can this be bad for me if I feel great right afterwards? You know what I mean? So like you have a super intense workout where you're like almost like where you're like, oh, I feel exhausted. I feel like I've given it my all, but how can this be bad for me? And but we don't realize that it's like this adrenaline rush that we're coming off, and that sometimes it's just, adding to the stress that we like you were saying, like just too much stress, even though it feels good. If you're a stress addict, of course it's going to feel good if you get that stress rush, and after a more mediocre workout where you're not so sweating, or where you're just getting your joints moving but you're not pushing too hard, you might almost feel like, oh, did I even do anything? But
Yeah.
I'm really curious too, because as you said, you pick and choose depending on seasons as well. But of course, you as a practitioner, you also know that, if you were like, running is pretty one-sided. It's always like in the frontal plane, or in that one direction. So how do you Like if someone comes to you and they're like, I love endurance sports, how can I know that it's, you know, my posture is not that great. I know I should be doing some strength training. Do you have any like advice for people how they can
100.
combine the two a little
Yeah.
bit in a healthy way?
I work with a lot of endurance athletes, especially in Dubai. Triathletes it's a huge thing in Dubai. Everybody wants to do an Ironman. Everybody does it. I'm like, how? On top of your life and your job and your family. Anyways, so it's
Yes.
so like in here. And of course, if you're, let's say you're running and you're swimming and you're cycling or you're doing too much endurance sports, we learn something about posture. There's no ideal posture. We're all made differently. So I can't tell you your body is like my body. Your posture is going to be completely different than your posture. But what's important is getting constant movement in the joints so that they don't get stuck in a certain position. So if you're doing too much of a certain, like an endurance sport, my biggest advice for strength training is light, anything that's not going to make you too sore. I absolutely love bands. Even if, you know, a lot of people doing endurance also sitting behind computers all day. In endurance sports, you're always in a certain plane. When it comes to training, I always recommend training in other planes. So if you're a runner,
Mm-hmm.
I give what I do also for my training when I'm doing run training, when I want to do the strength stuff. Back in the day, I used to do heavy squats and heavy deadlifts. And now I'm like, why am I doing that? I just get so sore. And then I go to my session feeling so heavy that my running isn't explosive. More explosive things, super light, like I'll do single leg stuff, or I'll do box jumps, or I'll do
Mm-hmm.
light box squat, kettlebell swing, something that allows my body to move through different ranges of motion and still challenges
Yeah.
my joints. So I don't get, you know, I used to suffer a lot from plantar fasciitis in my feet, and now I started training, for example, barefoot on a mat, or it's called like a Nabosa training mat. It's got spikes in them. It simulates my feet. It allows my body to be in a different position. I train in different positions. I find so much stuff online. There's so many fun things on Instagram. I always want to try different things. I do a lot of things to help just open up. We're extremely closed in general. So, you know, we're so used to moving in flexion. That's 90% of low back pain, is because we're so used to moving in flexion and we're not used to opening up our chest and our hips, our hip flexors. So
Yeah.
we're sitting all day, severe tension in their hip flexors. The body is about balance between the frontal chain and the posterior chain. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
extremely tight, having so much pain in your glute and your low back, stretch out your hip flexor. Like, it's not, I mean, it's,
Mm-hmm.
yes, people, it's rocket science. It's really not. Everything is balance. So you're
Mm-hmm.
extremely, you know, your upper back, which I see with a lot of people, is because they're sitting like this all day. So open up your chest. You can do a lot of chest openers, lots of stretches. I love using like a lacrosse ball just to get mobility, to get blood circulation in there. I'm always on my foam roller on the upper back, also on the glutes to open
Mm-hmm.
up all the tension. So tight muscles can either be tight from overtraining, or they can be tight from weakness or being compressed. So our butt and our glutes,
Mm-hmm.
usually the number one cause of back pain, really tight glutes. You'll
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of trigger because we're sitting and compressing our butt all day. So getting more activation in the glutes, rolling out the glutes, and then doing, let's say, some banded work. You don't have to overperform. You don't have to lift 100 kilos all the time. I mean, that's great if you're training for a certain goal. But if you just want maintenance, you know, it's like when I go on holiday, I never not move. I love to go for a little run on holiday. I'm not going to go training for something crazy, but I always try to go into the gym, light dumbbells, single leg deadlifts. I'll do like some lateral jumps and hops. I love doing things in different ranges of motion that challenge my stability, because generally my stability I find is really bad. And then I mean, I have some friends that are triathletes. I mean, they can barely even stand on one leg. They're insane triathletes. Get to single
Mm-hmm.
leg deadlift and they're like rocking all over the place. So on, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's training your weaknesses. If you're not training to
Yeah.
perform in a single, train your weaknesses. Find out what your weakness is and focus on training your weakness. And even to get more flexible and more mobility, it's not just about static stretching. It's about teaching the joint to go through, you know, the eccentric and the concentric load. So for me, challenging a joint with weights is one of the most important thing. It
Mm-hmm.
really helps. That, you know, I get patients always, oh, my hamstrings are so tight. I'm like, because they're so weak. You're sitting all day, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So you're getting so many paddle injuries because you're not doing any strength work. You're jumping from side to side in football, but have you ever trained in these lateral movements or high knees, or, you know, these fast explosive movements? No. Okay, well, no, obviously you're gonna get injuries in football. So you see how the athletes train. They train so explosive, so much, like ladder work and side work. And so it's absolutely amazing. So you can keep your training simple when it comes to strength training, but when you want to do explosive stuff, definitely try out different things. There's so many fun things. Work on your weaknesses, and
Love that.
you don't complicate things. Even nowadays, getting back into strength training, I love every day, well, once a week I pick something new that I've found online, and I work on it in the gym. I try to see what this movement is like, but I squat, I deadlift, I lunge, I do the basics, I overhead press, and then some days
Mhm.
I enjoy doing rotation movements, but it just challenges your body in different ways, and you realize, wow, like I'm really weak in these movements, so if I perfect that,
Yeah,
definitely will change how I feel and my exposure to injury, because injuries happen when your body isn't used to being in a certain position. You're not primed and you're not prepped
yeah,
to rotate, turn, and your body's like, what is that? And you go into spasm. So just getting ourselves primed, and we see, why do older people also get injured? People, as they age,
mhm,
they lose muscle mass and they lose stability because they're not used to moving at certain positions. And you see people, I mean, we fight gravity. It's the strongest force in the world. So
mhm.
you see people start to curve as they get older because their cores are weak and their body no longer can fight gravity. They can't hold themselves up anymore. So just constantly working now, when you're more youthful, on things, this is the best insurance you can do for your body, working on
Yeah.
challenging your body in positions so that you can age gracefully. I think that's the best anti-aging medicine that you can have.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, but balance and challenge and addressing the things, your weaknesses. I think those are really, really great tips actually. And you mentioned like balance in the general form and in regards to everything, and that makes me think of like balance in life too, because
Yeah,
you and I, we share many passions. For example, passion for travel, or like I'm so impressed and amazed with your whole business development and how you're always, like you say, like we can always evolve personally, but on a business level as well. And so
yeah,
I mean, I personally know how challenging it can be having those aspirations and loving to travel, loving variety
yeah.
and doing different things, but at the same time knowing how important routines are, whether that's like
100%.
personally or when it comes to your training and so on. So I'm just curious, if you like what if you have similar struggles, or if you have any tips for how to continue with that passion, but at the same time prioritizing the things that are important.
You said it. I mean, routine for me, and as humans, we crave something called homeostasis. Body wants
Mm-hmm.
balance. It wants this is just how we function. If we're constantly throwing off our routine, I love staying up on the weekend. I mean, I'm very social, so every weekend comes, I sleep at 2, and then I'm screwed during the week, because during the week I like to sleep at 10 or 10:30, so I can get up at 5 or 5:30. So definitely finding routine as a person, even when you travel. I know, like I was just in Copenhagen, I had such a great time, but I was in bed every night by max 11, because I know when, if I want to feel my best, sleeping at the same time every day, waking up at the same time every day makes me feel great. So control what you can. Same thing with food. If I don't eat for long periods of time, I just crash and then I have sugar cravings. So I've learned to control what I can, and that will
Mm-hmm.
help me perform the best of my abilities. I love to travel, I love to try new sports, but if I'm not feeling at the best of my ability, if I haven't slept well anymore, I'll wake up in the morning and say, look, I'm going to skip this training. I'll do some mobility work at home, because I
Oh,
know
that's
if
awesome.
is shot, and that's a day out of my life that I'm just gonna throw in the garbage. So I pick my battles nowadays, and then with having so many different passions, definitely one thing feeds the other. When I do sports, I
Mm-hmm.
get inspired. Sometimes I'm on my long runs on my own, listening to a podcast, and I think, oh wow, I want to try this out for my business. So I try to see how I can evolve that in the business. When I'm in work some days and people inspire me to try something new, I'm like, wow, okay, well, I want to get out there and try something new. So I definitely think the more exposure you have to different things, that's my personal philosophy, whether it's to people, whether it's to knowledge. I'm lucky in my job. Like I always tell my patients, I don't even watch the news. I get the news from everyone. I know what's happening in the world. I love to listen, interact with people, and they give you their different opinions on things. So it's so nice to hear and to learn. But there's so much out there. It's definitely about finding your passion, your drive, and then realizing people may give you advice, but no one knows what's best for you like you know. And so, you know, I appreciate it. I thank them. Thank you so much for this, that, you know, some people, oh, you're going to burn out. Why are you doing so much? And why are you doing? And I'm like, I feel great. Like, I know what works for me and what doesn't. I know when I train in the morning, I have enough fuel and fire to work all day, see 14 patients in a row, and still see something, do something social after work. But as long as I'm home by whatever, 9:30, and I know I'm in bed by 10, then that works for me. So I find my schedule and I fit. And that's something I remember when I worked with you when it comes to macros. You're like, don't leave it for the last minute and then decide every day. Like, this is your, you know, you have your building blocks, and you can need to program everything in the beginning. And then when you get to that stage, you're like, okay, well, I have the plan. This is the plan, and this is my course of action. But if you're just gonna, you know, leave it up in the air and go last minute with everything and be super spontaneous, I don't like spontaneity much in general. I really enjoy planning things. I let life be a little spontaneous, but if I don't have a plan and I don't have a set way of, you know, how I'm going to attack my day, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to respond to certain things, and I've realized from past experiences just doesn't work. It blows up in my face. So you can, there's no limit to what we can do and how much we can enjoy and explore and perform and achieve in life. You know, if I can do these things, so many people can do better than even me. It's just about, you know, finding what works for you, and definitely creating life. In our life, we need structure. We definitely need
Oh, I
structure,
love that.
and within
Yeah.
so much room to grow and to evolve and to be fluid. Um, but you have to know what works for you. You have to know what the basic things that drive you are, and then from there, you know, the sky really isn't even the limit. So you know,
And
I realize
I love that you said you pick your battles and that you know your baseline and what things are important for you. As you said, like your sleep, if you have your sleep nailed in, and if you have,
yeah,
you know, your regular food, you can play as much as, well, not as much as you want, but you know, you have a lot of room to play. But you know, if these basic things are off, then everything else is
100%.
gonna feel harder or impossible. So I love that.
Yeah, and you know, I really struggled with sleep in the past, and something that really helps me is a sleep routine. I love my
Mm.
phone. I love being on social. I love connecting with people, but I'm on social media all day, and I just told myself I have this wind down. Like, at, you know, my phone reminds me half an hour before a wind down. I really try not to get out. If I want to do anything last minute or scroll or check my email, I do. And then I love to use my face products and my creams, and I take my magnesium, and I have my routine to teach my body, okay, now it's time to go to bed.
Mm.
And it's helped
Mm.
much better, deeper sleep. And I wake up, I never wake up feeling cranky or angry anymore. I mean, once in a blue moon, I have insomnia. We all do. It happens with the moon or whatever it is. But, you know, I really have that routine down because I know I need my sleep to wake up to perform well so I can feel great all day. So these are the things that work for me. So find what works for you as a person, nail
Mm.
that down for help, you know. I tell my friends, like, don't get upset with me during the week. I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. You know, if you want to see me, we can do this. Otherwise, I have all weekend to see you and we can do whatever we want. But I'm not having late nights during the week anymore. This is my plan because
Yes.
I have a goal. We're expanding our businesses. I want to open another 10 clinics in the next 5 years. I don't want anything to limit me in that way. So I have to learn how to say no. This is my priority.
Yes.
So
I love that. No, everything that you say is just like, yeah, resonates with me so much. So I want to respect your time, and I just thank you for all the wisdom that you have shared with us today, especially when it comes to, you know, training your weaknesses, and training, like keeping things in balance, knowing your priorities, knowing the things that are like most important for you as a basis when it comes to health, but also most importantly that we have so much potential and we can all keep growing if we just lean into it. So thank you so much, Tamara. It was lovely catching up with you,
so
and I
nice to
really
see you.
appreciate your time.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
My love to everybody. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank. Bye.